Hello and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to talk about an article I've been reading about, so hopefully it'll be informative. However, what I do want to say to everyone is keep tuned and keep updated, subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to create a series of photography blogs and hopefully it'll be informative to anyone who's interested in photography. What am I going to talk about, you might ask? Well, I'm going to talk about the art of being a photographer. You see, anyone can take a picture, press the shutter button and take a picture. But do you actually understand the mechanics of being a photographer? In terms of getting the correct exposure, having the right shutter speed, having the right aperture set for the correct amount of depth of field. That means what's in focus before the subject and what's in focus behind. So I'm going to try and come up with a new series of videos just to explain in layman terms, so anyone can watch them within a few minutes, understand the basic principles of photography, and just keep looking at my channel to see when those are uploaded, and hopefully that will be helpful to you. Anyway, the reason for this video, I want to talk about something I was reading, coming home, and I thought it'd be interesting to talk about. So, without further ado, basically there's someone who's a CEO in New York of an imaging department, and he's called Chris Corendino, and basically he's saying more or less SLRs are dead, and the battle between micro four third cameras has been won, and basically saying that everyone who goes to a camera shop and is looking for a professional grade camera is missold full frame, and says basically full frame is dead, you don't need it, micro four thirds is the way to go, and it is an SLR full frame killer. So basically your Panasonics, your Olympus, your Lumix, all those sort of micro four third cameras are basically better than SLRs full frame, and I suspect he's suggesting even the APS-C crop ones that Canon and Nikon do as well. I really disagree with this for fundamental one reason, and let's not just talk about dynamic range. Obviously dynamic range on full frame is going to be better, there's no doubt about that. However, modern advances in micro four thirds has got a lot better, and so has the sensor technology. Basically it's a level playing field in effect. That's what this Chris is suggesting, and he's saying basically full frame is missold to you. You're basically, the sales advisors are mis-selling it to you that you need it. The thing is, I want to talk about sensor side. Now, when I was at photography school, and I do have significant qualifications, so take it as granted, I know what I'm talking about. But basically, just imagine your sensor is that size, right? Now, photography is all about drawing with light in effect. You're using light to capture an image. Without any light, there's no way of taking a picture. Even if you're using a flash, you're still using light. Light is the pencil, as it were, and that's what you use to create your image. Now, full frame might look a bit like this. Not quite, but let's just say full frame is gathering a lot of light. Obviously, the surface area is quite big. Now, micro four thirds, obviously this is a crude comparison, don't quote me on this, but if we fold this piece of paper to about a quarter of the size, we're getting light obviously on a smaller surface area. And that's the deal I've got with what this Chris is more or less telling you. He's basically saying that Micro Four Thirds has got so good it replaces full frame. You don't need full frame, and it is really good in low light these days, and sensor technology has advanced. That's correct. Sensor technology has improved dramatically in the last 10 years. I can tell you for a fact that in I think it was 1998, going back some time obviously, I think the first cameras that were coming out were 6 megapixels. I remember the Canon 1D body, the first one that came out, was, I think it was something like 4 megapixels originally, and then the likes of Nikon came out with a 6 megapixel, and that's most where your megapixel war started between all the manufacturers. But I'm just quite interested to know what guys you think. Do you think Micro Four Thirds it can compete with full frame? In my opinion, the answer to that question is no, because as I've said, it's all about surface area of the sensor gathering more light, and this is why full frame sensors are better in low light situations. In bright situations you're not going to notice a difference, but when the sun starts setting and say you are a wildlife photographer, you're going to want the full frame. Boosting your ISO, yes, you can make your sensor more sensitive, but you can only go to a certain point at which it's usable. So obviously full frame has its advantages because obviously it captures more light, and basically, although I'm not one to praise Tony Northrup because he does, you know, lots of videos, and I think he does try and sell his book to you quite often, which I'm not too fond about. But there is something that Tony Northrup actually does say that is quite important, is significant to understand, is regarding how, you know, small aperture or large aperture lenses affect crop sensors, Micro Four Thirds sensors, and full frame sensors. The gist of it is if you pop a 2.8 aperture lens on a crop sensor camera, it's not going to produce a 2.8 aperture. Don't get me wrong, you probably will still get the bokeh effect of 2.8, but you won't get the actual full capabilities of that lens in terms of, you know, transferring that light onto the sensor, because basically a crop sensor is only magnifying a part of the actual lens, and it's basically in effect wasting a lot of the lens coverage. At the same time, you're wasting a lot of the light as well, and that's his point. When you get a 2.8 lens and you stick it on a crop sensor camera, it's, while you're getting the bokeh advantages of being able to throw the background out of focus with 2.8 aperture, you're not benefiting from all the light. That's my point. But you stick that lens on a full frame, like so, you are benefiting from all the light, because the lens is a full frame lens. It's designed for a full frame sensor, so obviously it's capturing all the available light and putting it on the actual full frame sensor. So I just wanted to do a quick video discussing how lenses can affect how much light is gathered, and onto how that affects your actual sensor. So the consequence of using a full frame lens on a full frame sensor means all the light is transferred from the sun to the full area of the sensor. But when you have a crop sensor like APS-C or Micro Four Thirds, you're wasting a lot of that light. So Tony Northrup's assumptions regarding the aperture, you're not benefiting from the full amount of it, is partly right and partly wrong. You still have the benefit of the 2.8 aperture, so you can still throw things out of focus, but you're not benefiting from all the light. So to basically give you a comparison is, while on a full frame sensor you might be able to obtain a shutter speed of 200th of a second, put that same lens on a crop sensor camera and it might drop down to something like 125th of a second, the shutter speed, because it's got less light to play with. So I hope you found this video informative, and you know, having a larger sensor is very beneficial, because you're drawing with light. You want to use all the light that's out there on your sensor. However, if you're using crop sensor, you're wasting quite a significant amount of it. And the same as on micro four thirds, in fact more so. It's like four times less light in effect. Or 3/4 as it were. So thank you for watching and have a nice day.